Welcome back to this edition of UroChat, normally hosted by Steve Cooper, but because we're talking about Steve's life, he asked me, my name is Mark Lewis, here with Star Worldwide Networks and a personal friend of Steve's, to kind of conduct the interview of Steve because his story is so compelling that I think somebody like me who understands it, who's known him for a while, can pull this out. And these are things you really need to hear. We've talked about who you are as a person, the evolution of the diagnosis and what you did to get a plan of action with Dr. Bigelow. Now let's move forward. So you're getting a plan from Dr. Bigelow, you're taking all the different steps that are necessary. Let's go through that first before we get to what you did.
Sure. So the plan of action was surgery immediately, plus starting on Lupron, which is an anti-hormone therapy regimen. So we had the surgery in January, just 3 weeks after I was diagnosed, of 2012. And immediately, when I was first diagnosed and I decided to battle, I realized I needed to get into the best shape possible. It just intuitively, I think it was my father speaking to me, as a though he's passed away, just, him being a doctor and just some divine intervention.
What did he practice?
And he's a pathologist, ironically. And so I just felt like there was this knowledge coming to me out of nowhere that I never studied biology, never studied chemistry, never studied anatomy, but there was something in me just saying to be active, to drive on, to be as active as possible. And so what I did was, after I completed the surgery, then unfortunately my PSA started rising after surgery. And when you do not have a prostate, you should not have a PSA, right? Because it's a prostate-specific androgen. With no prostate, you should be producing no PSA. So when you're producing PSA absent a prostate, then it's pretty much a metastatic disease most likely, and that means there's still prostate cancer cells throughout the body.
So that means, for the layperson who doesn't understand, so that means the cancer has spread outside of the organ. That's why your bones hurt so significantly, because it had metastasized. In other words, it had spread throughout your body.
Right, into my pelvic lymph nodes as well. And so the next treatment option then is radiation. And so at that point I said, well, if I'm going to go through a radiation, I need to be in really good shape. This sounds like it's really tough on the body. And frankly, this goes back to what we talked about earlier, which was being married and being single. I was single at the time, and frankly, one of the greatest fears I had was being lonely throughout this journey, right? And so I didn't want to go to radiation every day by myself. And it was two things came together at one time. One was I wanted a plan to be around people to help me as a support group through radiation. And then secondly, I wanted a goal to try to achieve during radiation that would help me get in the best shape possible. And so what I started doing was searching on the internet, most extreme events in the world, hardest one-day physical challenge, toughest man in the world kind of stuff. And what kept coming up was the Ironman, and I had no knowledge about this event whatsoever. And as I learned more about it, it was a 2.4-mile swim. I never really swam in my life before this. It was a 112-mile bike ride. The most I had done was ride my bike to school and back. And then it was a 26.2-mile marathon after all of that, which culminates in a 140.6-mile triathlon, done in one day under 17 hours. Now, I had been a runner. I'm like, well, at least I knew the running part. The rest I'll figure out. And so it kind of came together. So I decided, based on the math and based on the calendar, I was able to do the Ironman race during radiation, during the 6th week of my 7 weeks of radiation. And so what I did was came up with a plan, a training protocol, if you will. And what that entailed was riding my bike to radiation back and forth every day. So we created a Facebook group called Ride to Radiation. And so, yeah, we just put it out there in the community. And so literally people from the mayor to the police chief, to neighbors, people I never met before, to medical professionals, to just curious people, to athletes, to professional celebrities came out and would ride their bikes to and from radiation with me every single day, Monday through Friday. And that went on for the entire 7-week duration. Never once did I have to ride my bicycle to or from radiation by myself.
Do you think that the magnitude of the Ironman, because you just didn't pick like a 5K. Right. I mean, this is an extraordinary accomplishment for anybody who's even in shape, who runs those. Right. But you picked this. Do you think that mental acuity helped focus you in your treatments as well? And because it really kept your goal and your sight focused on the race as well as your treatment?
I do. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. One thing I want to be very crystal clear about, I don't think I'm alive today because I've done the Ironman races. One of the big issues that I have out there with people is they will take a supplement or they will do yoga, and then they want to say that they were cured of their cancer because of this supplement or because of yoga, but then they negate all of the great work the medical professionals have done, right? So I know I'm alive today first and foremost because of literally more than 100 medical providers in the East Valley who have cared for me, almost weekly for the last 6 years. From physical therapist to my surgeon, to my oncologist, to radiation therapist, it goes on and on. Psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, coaches. It's a huge community, right? And so because of that is why I'm alive. But to your point, I think having the drive and staying as active helped with my depression. It kept me busy and it kept me with having a focus. I still work during radiation, but it gave me something to strive for and take my mind off of it. And literally, I was so busy training for the Ironman that if you asked me during the middle of the day how my treatment was going, I would say my training's going great. I would forget that I was actually going through cancer treatments.
And that was my point. It almost got you to a point where you were so preoccupied with the race, yep, which is a great kind of bait and switch with your mind, right, and your body. Now you're still treating clinically the symptoms and going through all the steps that are necessary for the treatment, but the ability to focus your mind and not be sitting around and dwelling on, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I got this, it's not looking good. Right. You set yourself, but I think you're modest too, because I think your ability and your constitution to focus and your discipline was a big catalyst in your success. And that's why I think your story is so important, to be able to tell people about how you did it. Maybe they can't do an Ironman, maybe they don't have that type of mental acuity, but because you were able to ascertain that would supplement what you needed to do clinically, that it would be a big benefit.
Absolutely. And the writing to radiation, doctors started talking about this, it became a conversation piece, to where I started getting phone calls from doctors literally around the world asking how I was doing. They were intrigued by my protocol. The fact that I was riding my bike and being active before radiation, is there a medical benefit to that? And then riding my bicycle immediately afterwards, am I helping to detoxify my body, if you will, of the radiation? And so that became, something really intriguing to me, and this whole concept of exercise oncology started to emerge, not because of me, but just during this time frame. A lot of us in the cancer community are becoming more active as we're going through treatments. And so now there's an entire field of discipline, focused on, what can the human body do during cancer treatments with exercise.
Well, I think that's very important to talk about. And so he became the first person ever actively in radiation chemotherapy to run and complete an Ironman, which is a remarkable accomplishment. In and of itself, to complete an Ironman, right, just listening to how your training went, yeah, makes me tired, so I'm not in that great a shape. But that's a remarkable accomplishment. But even more remarkable is what happened, and you'll have to stay with us in our next segment, because he wound up taking on the VA and people said it couldn't be done. You'll have to come back for that story.